This is Brian VanHooker live at New York Comic Con 2025. I am interviewing the guys behind Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Empire City from Cortopia Studios. I've got everybody introduce yourselves. Tom Waltz.
Tom Waltz, TMNT comic book writer and story consultant for the game.
And
hi, Ace Saint Germain. I am the creative director on the game.
Cool. So I got a preview of this game yesterday, and in all transparency, the audio didn't work, so we're going to try to make this really spontaneous and sound like we didn't have the conversation before. But I mean, there's some things about I wanted to bring back up from yesterday, which I really liked. So I mean, before we get into that though, like, tell me where the game started and what the origin of the game was and why you wanted to make a Turtles game.
Yeah, so I've been a lifelong fan of the Ninja Turtles, and obviously, so grew up on the old show, and then went on to watch every single movie known to man. Found the comics later in life, and then ended up diving really heavily into the IDW series and last run. And now at this point, I'm pretty sure I've read every single issue, even like side issues
there's so many.
and everything. No, I actually think I might have gotten them, which is why even a lot of the inspirations are really random.
Sure.
To the point where I think we haven't even announced who our major villain is, and somebody at Paramount, their lore keeper, came back and said, "Oh my, what are you doing? Who are you bringing back here?" Random character, no one even couldn't even remember. So I mean, we haven't announced it yet.
Oh wow!
Just to be clear, part of it definitely was like the depth of my love for the Ninja Turtles. Sure. But the other aspect of it, it's just fits so natively with virtual reality, embodying like characters who have like a sense of strength, and it's sort of new. And again, you wake up in headset, you have 3 fingers and 2 toes, you can parkour across cities, you have martial arts capabilities. It's perfect for VR in terms of that sense of embodiment. And the second part of it is the social aspect. So if you have friends who love Ninja Turtles and you get in a headset together, that sense of presence, you will forget. First off, you're going to forget you're not Ninja Turtles, and you're going to forget you're not in the same room. And that is what makes VR so powerful. So it just felt like such a native fit that we wanted to go full face into it. And that was really, that was the long version of how we got here.
No, that's fine. So I had the pleasure of like doing a quick demo of the game yesterday in the Turtle Lair. And it was the first time I've ever done VR. And like, I'll attest to that. That was like such an immersive, cool experience. And like, to look down and see the 3 fingers and like to interact with the sewer layer. Like the lair was built out in such a way that feels like kind of grimy in the way you want the sewer layer to be. Like and each turtle has a room that's personalized to the turtle, which is really cool. So like really great details that I really like. My favorite detail maybe was the Tempester game in the arcade game in the corner that I really like. That was such a great detail, like an 87 grab for something that's so heavy on IDW and Mirage. Getting into the IDW Mirage connection, can you talk about what the overall story is of the game?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to. And it was really heavily inspired by the Mirage era City at War. Oddly enough, so maybe this feels a little too personal, but I was my daughter came about 4.5 years ago, and then I took on this job as the CEO of this new company about a year after that. And I think around the era of time we were thinking about a new game, something that weighed heavy on me was like just the constant questions about how do you be a good father and how do you be a good leader to these people, and just the constant questions like how do you take these decisions, how do you teach people things, and it just and do it well. And I kept thinking about how do we make a great story about leadership, and again, it's an embodied experience. So how does the player think about leadership, and how do they lead, how do you teach them to lead? And you could really dig into a lot of moments where Leonardo is presented with those issues, like throughout the canon of Turtles. But then I thought about somebody else who was really fascinating in that space, and that was Karai. Like post Shredder's death, needing to figure out how to be the leader of the Foot Clan. How does she like return it to a form? What is that form? Does she have enough power to be able to control it the way that he did, and other ways? So it was this thing that I thought, let's take that era of Mirage City at War, but then add a bit of extra depth to it, where it's not just about showing what happens, but allow the player to guide what might happen depending on their behavior. And that's really what drove everything.
So are the turtles responsive to Karai in a lot of ways? Like she drives the story?
No. Karai is responsive to the player. So think of it.
Interesting.
So your version of Leonardo
Yeah.
might be different than somebody else's version of Leonardo versus somebody else. Like, so their idea of Clan Hamato might be different than other person's Clan Hamato. So if you think about it, if you're a hardcore fan of the Mirage era, you might see that playing out differently
Sure.
than maybe somebody who's a big fan of the Rise series, right?
Sure.
And maybe if we present you with, should this person die or not, which turtles would say yes, which turtles would say no? Maybe none of them would say yes.
Sure.
But you kind of give somebody, and it's also personal. So you as a person, right? Like embodied in this shell, how does that work for you? So it is something we're doing a little bit different here. Like, we're not trying to tell you, watch this story of the turtles. We're saying, you are the turtles. This is your story.
Mm-hmm. So talk about why you did a little bit just then, but why did you choose Karai over Shredder?
I really want, because again, it was really about this. I wanted there to be a core character that reacted to the player's actions and the decisions that they took. And just for me, I love that arc. So it's like, personally, also just absolutely love that arc. And I needed somebody to be in heavy conflict with themselves about how that change was going to come about. And I guess we could have had Shredder around.
But no, like Karai can go either way, whereas Shredder is a force of nature. He's the best thing.
Right.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I needed her to think, I needed the player to have some sense of push in one direction or another and see the consequence or benefit or whatever, depending on how you see it, of their actions.
Yeah. That's
well, Karai it's a lot like, I look at her, although she was first, but it's like Rey Skywalker in the new Star Wars movies, where you've got good and evil, but there's a gray area,
Sure.
and I felt like Rey lived in that gray area where she could see some of the good in Ben, but she also understood, the I guess the history and the legend of the Skywalkers or the Force side of things, and I felt like with Karai, she's in this constant battle for balance.
Sure.
Because we got Splinter on one side, who is obviously the good guy, and he represents good, and then Shredder, who's a villain, and he represents evil, and Karai kind of sits in that middle where, she's loyal to the Foot Clan, but she doesn't agree with everything they do, and can see some good in the good. And I think that's where the turtles always kind of relate to her. I think especially Leo, and you see that like across iterations. It always tends to kind of be Leo that I think kind of gravitates towards Karai and vice versa, because I think they're both in a position where we're the next ones in charge. Are we going to do the same thing that
we make the same
basically
mistake?
What our bosses, our servants,
Yeah.
have been doing all this time? Because we see the world differently now, and the world is always changing.
Yeah.
And we're trying to change with it, but we're being kind of overloaded by these very old-fashioned, senseis, these masters that are, kind of trying to guide them in a direction that they, like any kid, that might not be the complete direction they want to go.
Sure. No, talk about your part in the game. So, like, when did you come on board? And I don't know, what's your story consultant? So, what does that entail for you?
Cortopia reached out to me, and they asked if I consulted the game, that they were putting together the VR game. It kind of basically works the same in other consulting jobs where I have. They will present like an outline to me and their ideas, and look for like early feedback. What works, what doesn't. Does this go against canon? Do you think we can do this? And a lot of times it's funny because a lot of the developers will say, "Oh, well, we want to do like IDW, we want to do like this, but we kind of want to do this thing in the game. Is that going to be okay?" And I always tell people, at this point, there's so many iterations of Turtles, and Turtle fans love Turtles, that being adjacent, like we call this IDW adjacent or Mirage adjacent, sure, that works fine, but never feel like you're beholden to like strict canon and strict continuity. That have fun with this, make it new, because fans want something that's familiar but also new, and novel for them as far as story is concerned, or in this case, the way you play the game and way you interact. Like in this case, you have a lot of independence to make the story work for you, because you are in the game. You are one of the turtles. And then after that, they go back with the writers, they put together a full script, and then I start, just kind of going through editing, giving notes and script, maybe making suggestions. Maybe this character should say that,
sure,
or maybe we should move this here, or maybe this works a little better. And then after that, we continue until there's a final draft that everybody feels like this is our story and we're really happy with it. And I mentioned in the panel, this one was fun because it was so well written. I got to not only be working, but kind of fanboying at the same time.
Sure.
Because there's so much good stuff in there. And I told Ace, I'm probably going to steal some of this for comics someday. Some of these, there's some, it's a serious story and very gritty, but there's some zingers in this one that just had me laughing out loud.
Is there much difference between writing a Now, you've worked in games
I still have
a long time, correct?
Yes.
Is there much difference between writing a VR game versus a third-person game?
Yes. Yeah.
What's the difference?
So the biggest thing is you don't really have the benefit of cutscenes. So pacing is wildly different. So it's gonna sound funny. You could sit in front of a decently long, like 1 to 2 minute long cutscene inside of a video game and not really feel it. And in fact, maybe feel really engrossed because you're so leaned back.
Sure.
When you have a headset on, you're there. You're leaned in. Someone talking at you for a minute or two feels like an eternity.
That's like
So like you're like, I am standing here. So what happens is like people walk around, like you'll see it. You see people standing in really like long made cutscenes for VR where they're stuck in an environment and they're just walking around grabbing things, trying to not make eye contact with the character because it's awkward. And so you really have to move through stuff quickly. So everything is a little bit, you know, John Wick, like kind of like moving, like talking on the go. Like you can't, there are examples of it, but I'll tell you, you have to experience it to slightly understand what I mean.
Sure.
But really everything feels longer. So you do not have the benefit of telling long drawn out stories. You have to be telling them on the fly in the environments and other ways that people can just keep moving and interacting, or else you're done.
It's funny, like, I don't know if it was just the effect of VR, but when I went in it and then like when I was done, I was like, that felt like I was like, how long was I in there? It felt like it was an hour.
Gotta mention that in the panel.
Yeah.
No, I think it's funny because I had finished working on Splinter Fate, which is, I never, is it roguelike or roguelite? I never get it. You know, roguelike.
There is a difference. Roguelite, I think is technically theirs.
Yeah, or like a Hades game. So it was similar in the sense that game is, there's a lot of branching storylines because when you die, you go back to the beginning, and then you had to go through all these levels again. You get a little more power, you know, a few more skills, and maybe you'll be able to traverse it a little further. But a lot of times you end up going back, but again, it's, you got to feel like it's always moving, you know, because it can't be redundant. And I think that's what I found out when I started working on the VR game, is it never feels redundant.
Sure.
And like Ace said, as long as you're moving and keeping people active, they're going to remain engaged and still get a story, but never feel like, oh, I wish I had X and I could skip this thing. You know, it's because you're there, you know. So in life, you can't just skip things. You have to live them. But if we're going to live them in a game, in an action game, we want to keep it active, and it remains that way completely throughout the game.
Can you die in the game?
Not permanently.
Okay.
You can be beat and then you have to start over.
Okay.
Yeah, yes. Right.
I should say, so we know that you can play as each of the 4 turtles.
Correct.
And you can switch them out when you go back to the lair, right? April, Splinter, Casey Jones, we just found out they have active parts in the game.
Correct.
I think he said April talks more than anybody.
Yes.
She's kind of like Oracle to Batman, which is cool. Like, that's perfect for April.
Yeah.
So like those characters are big parts in the game, but you only play as the 4 turtles.
That's correct.
And one thing before we go, I wanted to cover one more thing. Is like, you said it was a different experience, turtle by turtle. Like, I remember you saying for Donnie, he gets more tech, but he's maybe not as strong as Rat.
Right.
So like, can you talk about how the experience differs turtle by turtle? It just in a nutshell, three.
Yeah, sure. I guess starting with Leonardo, we try to keep him as even keeled as possible.
Sure.
He sort of does everything great. But not as well as maybe each of the other ones. So as a great example, you know, his just by nature of the way that his swords work, he has like probably the most middle distance in terms of the distance you can stand between yourself and a foot ninja.
Sure.
Whereas like Raphael, you have to get a bit closer. It's a little more dangerous.
Sure.
Right? And the size are much shorter. So like there's already the natural aspect of VR with that, where that's a real thing.
Interesting.
You know, his the amount of health we give him right at the beginning, ultimately the amount of tech he can equip, the amount of consumables, like
so like
star stuff.
can only use so much tech.
Yeah, exactly. And it differs the amount of things that they can throw and like the amount of health packs they can hold, the amount of smoke bombs they can hold, things like that vary between the turtles. And in Leonardo's case, you can kind of hold like, let's call it the middle amount of everything. Sure, I don't think about there, but it makes it so that he doesn't really have a massive disadvantage in any capacity. Raphael, on the other hand, like his special strike takes a little while to charge up before you use it, but it does a lot of damage at once.
Okay,
so you know he's designed with more health. he can not hold as much technology. He just doesn't believe in it. So in his fights, because again, he has a short sai, you got to get in, you got to be willing to like really go and, you know, and jump into the fray early and really put yourself at risk more often than not, usually with things that feel riskier on a moment to moment basis. But again, we allow you to hit people real hard when you're in that close and take a lot of damage. So very Raphael. In Michelangelo's case, it's just such a wild one and sort of slightly unpredictable. We made it so that at the version of his charge of his weapon, he actually like kind of spins dudes around where they kind of like get disoriented, need to reorient themselves towards you again.
He must be the harder one to figure out.
A little bit, because also they're like, again, it's 1-to-1 in nunchucks. You're not pressing a button, have the nunchuck swing the nunchucks.
And like in the
so you got
stories, he serves a comedic level, right? So how do you do that in that? That's interesting.
Yeah, exactly. So he almost gets to have fun. You have to be able to like a lot of play. You get a lot of benefit. And remember, like blocking with nunchucks isn't as easy as blocking with like sturdier weapons, right? So even understanding that, okay, naturally you're going to be the guy dashing around people. You're not going to be sitting there trying to like.
Is he faster?
He's not faster than them, but notice you're going to be using his speed different ways that you use Raphael's speed. Like in Raphael's speed, you're using it to close a distance quickly. In Michelangelo's case, you're doing like poke and then get away and then poke back in. Right. So it just works a little bit differently. He does have some benefits towards like his traversal like movement mechanics do advance a bit later on in the game, where he can suddenly do more interesting jumps than other people can because he's such a daredevil. And then in Donatello's case, he's very much like starts off with the lowest amount of base health, but he can wear the most technology. And so, you know, fully kitted out Donatello feels a lot different than like a Leonardo.
We got to figure down. He sat out a training session or two.
Yeah, exactly. And between him and Michelangelo, they throw the most stuff and have the, you know, like it was a bit more of a wild scenario. So they all like individually, they're completely capable of absolutely just running the whole game like by themselves. Like that's sort of the way it's designed. But together, like you and 3 of your friends jump in together, you feel different enough where like you're kind of taking on a slightly different role. So again, it'd be like, because the more players you have, the more enemies there are. And in Donatello and Michelangelo's case, they can manage the crowd easily. Raphael's really good if you got a big meaty enemy that like might take some more damage. It needs to tank a lot of hits. You probably want to throw him at that. And in Leonardo's case, you just want him consistently just dropping people, getting up the rooftop and taking out a sniper before they have a chance to get to you, kind of thing. So it will naturally play itself out. But again, each one of the turtles is you. So you might play it wildly different than anyone. Like basically, what we're trying to say is, if you play Raphael and decide you want to also throw a lot of gear, we're not going to stop you. We limit it a little bit naturally, right? Like we make it so that you can't hold as much stuff as Donatello. You might choose that that's what you want to do.
I remember you saying it autocorrects to your skill level
a little bit,
like how good you are at it.
Well, no, but what I meant by that is like, I'm guessing most people can't scale a building off like the windowsills alone, right?
Oh,
like, and so what we've done is like, what you'll notice when you're embodied in these characters is that climbing buildings is easy.
We get to be like, Tom Cruise at the Mission Impossible.
Basically, like So like we try not to make it a struggle for you to be able to like get up a building or across town using parkour.
I see.
You're a Ninja Turtle.
Right. Okay.
We got to make it as easy as possible. So, yeah.
I get the sense we watched the gentleman that had some nunchuck experience. And he was moving, had all the correct moves, and he was really getting into it, saying it was really realistic. And I said, you know, the physicality of it is interesting to me because let's say you're not that guy like me. I would knock myself out in 2 seconds with nunchucks, but I can see where after you play this game, you're going to have to get better because you are the one doing it. It's not, don't have to push that button faster. You need to learn how to spin these things faster or know how to, what technique to use in certain situations. So I said it in a weird way, it'll be kind of a weird kind of like martial arts training because especially with weapons, because you're going to want to master these weapons, but you really need to master these weapons. That's in your hands.
You know, I think I'm set. Tell us how to follow Cortopia Studios and so the detail, it's going to come out 2026. Do we know anything other than that? Like where it's going to be available, all that stuff? Tell us about that.
Yeah, sure. So the game we've announced is launching on the Quest ecosystem. So for Quest 3 and Quest 3S, which is Meta's VR platform. In addition to that, it's going to be on Steam for Steam VR, which we call PC VR. And in terms of finding us, you can find us on our Discord. Is probably the best way to find us. Yeah, exactly. For Cortopia Studios.
Cortopia Studios, Cortopia.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah. Yes. I almost said Cortopia Studios. I always that's coming out of my mouth. That's why I was like, stop, Tom, before you say it.
Rebrand.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, so we can find you in Discord. I know you also have an Instagram and all that stuff.
Right.
And keep posted that way. And we'll see the game in 2020. Guys, thanks for doing this. Thank you personally. Like, it was really exciting to try the game and experience VR for the first time. So I'm grateful for you guys for doing this.
And we're very thankful to you. Thank you so much.
Please. I'm really thank you.
I was talking to my wife and Tisha. I was talking to her last night, and I was telling her I watched you play the game, and I said, they impressed the right guy, because that's the fandom right there, and that's the person you want to make happy. And so I said, it was score.
It was cool.
Yeah.
I know I genuinely was. And I'm not just saying it was really fun.
Makes me really happy to hear that, because we really was trying to make a game for the fans.
Yeah.
You know, that was such a deep lore and buried lore.
Yeah.
Is nerve making.
It was cool because I think you grabbed some really cool places. Like like the fact that you went to like the first thing you sang City of War, I was like, oh, like you caught my attention immediately, because that was not the answer I expected you to say.
Yeah.
Like I looked and saw IDW looking turtles, which I love IDW turtles. I think that run is amazing, and I still enjoy it. But like when you said it's adjacent to Mirage's City of War, I was like, oh, so they're really telling their own story here. Right. So really, I really dig. So, yeah. All right. Thanks so much again, and keep an eye out for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Empire City, the very first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles VR game. VanHooker. This is a bit of a different episode here. I interviewed Austin St. Germain of Cortopia Studios. That's the VR video game company that is coming out with the first ever TMNT VR game, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Empire City. I interviewed this guy way back in October of 2025, but I also recently spoke with him for Polygon Magazine. I'm a writer there presently, and we went a little bit more in depth than we had before. And I know lots of people are excited about this game, so I figured I would rerun the interview here. So yeah, this is me and Austin St. Germain of Cortopia Studios talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Empire City, which is coming out pretty soon. So enjoy. I guess to get started, let's talk about what the where this game started.
Yeah, it's funny because it kind of started from two different directions. One was we had open space at the studio to think about our next big game, right? I mean, just like fundamental vision of it. And I know that sounds like I'm going way too far back, but it was actually like a linchpin moment in terms of understanding like one of the killer promises of virtual reality was a sense of presence and sort of the social sort of aspect of like being with your friends and people you would meet like in a virtual space like this. Because again, like you see somebody in their virtual avatars and it's surreal. It's like you really feel like you're there. I was trying to tell people like if you're gonna like take a call with your friend, don't do it over Zoom. Like go play like walkabout mini golf or something like that. Like that's what I would tell them. And so when we were thinking about the game we wanted to make, right, well, we need something that was natively multiplayer. And then we started thinking about what else is really cool about VR, and it's just sort of like, look, you can make anybody a hero, right? You could like embody the coolest characters and do the coolest stuff. And we started thinking about what the coolest stuff was in VR. It's like, being like a warrior and doing all this fun stuff with like movement. And then I'm just a giant Ninja Turtles nerd, so I use that as my platform, right? To take that and go, well, you know what? I got a great idea for that. This is where it would be. But it did sort of naturally fall into place for something where these two things just met. We're like, what's VR good at? What IP would be really good at doing that? And then I would say maybe then there was just like maybe a little too much of my influence saying like, you know what? I really think the brothers would be made for a phenomenal embodiment experience. Again, waking up with like three fingers, shell on your back, things like that. It's just like you can't beat that. Like it was just going to be such a different experience than anything else that was out there. That it just fits so natively into what I felt like Turtles could be.
Can we talk about like why are you such a Ninja Turtle nerd? What did you grow up with? Are there certain things that like really like stuck with you more than others?
Yeah, I think like everybody else, I grew up on on the old original '80s show, and from there discovered the comics thereafter because I was a bit on the young side. I don't think anybody wanted me to read the violence of the original violence of the original Mirage one. But yeah, I mean that I would say probably the biggest stories would be the ones I had with my brothers. I mean, just growing up, we had a couple of the toys. We watched a little bit of the show. We actually had the toy. It's funny. I won't say almost. I got the toys before I saw the first episode ever, like for myself at least. So like order of operations went a little bit funky there. But being able to like we had so many random stories like using these toys and having fun. I actually had the Ninja Turtles the skateboard. Our chief marketing officer had me go try to find any photo of me with toys and stuff. And I didn't really have that many because we didn't have a lot, but I found this super dorky picture of me with the turtle skateboard. And I was like, oh yeah, there you go.
There you go. Yeah.
But I think, yeah, it's just always been ingrained, I think, from there. Like telling stories with these characters with my brothers is one of my fondest moments, memories as a child. And I think that's just sort of carried me through. And so like I've always I've been watching for a long time. I think I kind of like lapsed like around after the 2003 show for a bit, and then like came back and fell in love with it. And then especially when I started getting into this game again, like went even deeper than I think I'd ever had in my life. So it was pretty, yeah. And I think I might have mentioned this when we last spoke, but like I've read every single issue, and now I'm still caught up. Like even the stuff Battle Nexus stuff happening now, I'm issue to issue now and everything. It's fun. So yeah, I'm into it.
Talk about the story for this and how it took shape.
Sure. So probably uh probably the story arcs that had the most impact on me which probably isn't going to be super unique, but it was sort of this, there was issue 1 where they eliminate the Shredder. Obviously as their love letter to Daredevil. And then moving forward, the arcs of Return to New York and City at War from the original Mirage comics, I don't know, I love them. Like deeply feel like they were just really interesting conversations they were having with their readers and the things that the creators were trying to say at the time. And I've always sort of felt them. And then coincidentally for me, those were like my favorite episodes related to that going into the 2003 show and even 2012, right? Like,
Those are great
you
ones.
can, right? Like, cause like that, because we think about it, that's really like probably the most influenced through line is like Mirage Run 2003 and then 2012, obviously. And we all know why.
Totally.
How those played out. And so, for me, like I always wanted to latch onto that to some degree, but also, one of the hardest parts about virtual reality is because the player is embodying a character, it's like the deepest version of immersion and gameplay you could possibly think of. And so you can't really ask a player to go through a character arc. I mean, you could try, but we would need a like, right. You can't tell them to go through a character arc. You can when you're playing like you know what I mean. Like you could when you're playing something else, like you're playing like in third person or even like first person playing Fallout or something like that. You can tell the player, like, oh, you were this character and the thing happened to you, and that's your dad, and all this other stuff happened. But you kind of don't go through an arc. You just kind of you are who you are, right? So
Sure.
everybody else around you needs to change. And so we need to think a little bit about like how do we create a compelling story arc that like builds all that catharsis made for a really deep world. But it all kind of had to happen to somebody else, and we wanted it to happen based on the player's decisions. And then for me, I think the character that stood out most for me was Karai, especially when you think about all the various versions of her through like through the 40 years of Ninja Turtles, like who she was and all the different iterations. And I think I really wanted to explore her sort of struggle with becoming a leader and the kind of leader she wanted to be, like in the face of like all the sort of opposition and people believing in her believing in herself, like, how maybe the Shredder was behaving and all this, that the ways that this changed over the years. And I thought that she was a really interesting center character to focus on. So, and then when I thought about that, that just fit in with City of War so well. It's like you have this, you have this person coming over from Japan to try to take the Foot Clan back, and you need to help her decide what kind of leader she's going to be for the Foot Clan. And like, what choices do you make? And how does that drive the ending?
So are you saying like if you play the game one way, she'll become like evil, and another way she'll become more heroic?
Yeah. I think about as heroic as Karai could ever be, and
Sure.
about as evil as Karai could ever be.
Sure.
That's what the middle space. Exactly. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So there. Yeah. Exactly. It's just she's played so many parts, like she's been both, and go ahead and make her both. Like what do you?
Yeah.
I'm curious to find out how people play it. Yeah.
So it's not like it's not. I mean, I'm sure that there are pre-written options, but the destination is not predetermined in the way it is for a regular.
No.
Oh, interesting. Okay, cool.
No, exactly. I mean, I won't say we're not going as deep as maybe like your super big narrative, sort of multi-art, like 20 different ending situation. But I mean, there is sort of a binary, this happens versus that happens. And, which we think is very true to her character, actually. So
Now, aside from the story, I'm guessing the other biggest part is like you just want people to experience being a turtle, right? Like that's the thing, right? That's going to be what draws people in, right? Not the like Karai is where you keep playing the game, but the reason why you start is because you want to be a turtle, right?
yeah, I would argue that that's also the reason why I keep playing the game.
Sure.
I think Karai's arc is sort of just like the carrot that pushes you through on a narrative progression perspective, and also builds the world out in a way I think is really tangible and familiar for those who are really deep into the IP. But I think yeah, exactly. I mean, when we set out to make this game, our North Star wasn't necessarily to make this like really great stealth action adventure game. We hope that's what people take away from it. But actually, the North Star was we jokingly called it the ultimate Ninja Turtles LARPing simulator.
Oh,
So,
cool, nice.
it's like because you get an headset and I know I've heard some people say it already. They can just like hang out in the lair. They don't really want to.
I mean, when I did it, that was delightful. Like just hanging out in the lair, that was amazing. I could have spent all day there.
Yeah, exactly. And and obviously part of the Ninja Turtles fantasy is beating up Foot and doing all the rest of the stuff. So obviously we make that possible as well. But really we try to put a pretty heavy focus on the sense of embodiment and having the skills of a Ninja Turtle. So being able to parkour around our sort of semi-open area city, having obviously beyond most people's capabilities in terms of martial arts and being able to dash around really stealthily and with tons of agility. And it's just like we want you to feel like when you're there, you feel powerful, vulnerable still because you're not Superman or Batman, but yeah, but then like you're that you are a Ninja Turtle, like, and that when you and your friends get in, that you're Ninja Turtles together, just having a good time. So
The does the experience differ according to what turtle you select?
Somewhat. So the we didn't try to make like four different divergent storylines. Obviously, that's where we try to focus it in on
Yeah.
one direction. But what the experience change is based on the general progression of each turtle. So in terms of your abilities and the way that you decide you kind of want to build them out, there are some turtles that are good at certain things natively than others. And obviously, fighting like two-handed with the staff feels very different than fighting with the nunchucks. And so what you'll find is like, well, we don't necessarily have like we weren't focused on trying to make the class-based gameplay because we also did not want to alienate anybody from being able to play their favorite turtle mostly how they wanted. But there are definitely specific like benefits from one turtle and another. So you might imagine like a Donatello can equip more technology than any of the other turtles, and so that kind of changes his build potentially, like depending on how you build him out. He probably has the most flexibility in what he's built out as. And Raphael doesn't wear as much tech, but has a lot of health. He can take a lot of hits.
Sure.
And then again, like even just the sheer difference of having to play really up close because his size is so much shorter than Donatello's staff, like he just feels different, like as you're playing. And you'll notice that people just gravitate towards a certain play style because of the character they choose. So when people play Michelangelo, they tend to cause a lot more havoc and crowd control a bit more. So, and we knew that was going to be the case. So we give you a bit more crowd control capabilities than maybe like a Leonardo or something like that.
Sure.
So it will play out slightly differently, but we also was sort of like mileage may vary, and we want it to be your own adventure. So that was the important part.
It's funny. I don't think I thought of this back when I did it, but like the Donatello, do you have to hold your hands like this all the time?
No, you don't. You don't have to.
Okay.
Preferred.
Shit. I was wondering. I can't remember if I was like if I had to hold on to it with two hands or not, or I don't remember.
You are slightly disadvantaged by not holding with two hands, but like
I see.
like using a real staff. There's a time and place to use one. There's a time and place to use two, and we just want to make sure you had the flexibility to do it. So
Oh, very cool.
yeah.
Which turtle did you personally find to be the most fun to be in the game?
The most fun to be. Coincidentally, I'm like a big Raph guy, like by nature. Like whenever you ask me who my favorite turtle is, but I would say Donatello. Coincidentally, ended up being
Okay.
the most fun. I don't know, man. There's something just about like having like there's something about the way that the bow staff feels in hand and the way that it kind of cracks people over the head and all the rest stuff. It just feels really fun and playful. And we were kind of going for like creative vibe with him. In some ways, like breathed out his personality, and I think that ended up playing out in the game. And then I would say just as a cheat second, I think swinging the nunchucks around is too good.
I've always been a Donatello fan, but I find Michelangelo usually be the most fun of the games because it's just kind of like more wild action.
Yeah, exactly. We're just whamming
Yeah.
around with that thing, which is a lot of fun.
Like I know I couldn't because I don't have any skills like that, but I think I could hurt somebody with nunchucks in a way that I feel like I would probably hurt myself with a sword, right? Like
Yeah, exactly. Well, you can get them both done in my games.
sure.
Yeah.
Can you talk about bringing in Tom Waltz? When he entered the picture, why Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a giant Tom Waltz fan. He and like I'm very fortunate that he knows that now, and I've had to tell that in person. I'm a big fan of his work. We brought Tom in as a story consultant after we were done with the first draft the first draft of the script. Mostly because I wanted to come in and have him correct any sort of odd lore decisions and maybe something that felt a little out of voice, especially for a lot of the dialogue. It's something that he might pick up on. He's had a million times more interactions with the fans, and for us, making this a fan love game was number one. This isn't like Ace's personal Ninja Turtles experience. We're trying to make something for everybody else, really. And it was really helpful to have his eyes on that. Like there were some moments of dialogue. It's like, oh, you know what? Actually, I would swap these two turtles, or I would say this there, or maybe you would actually say it this way. Maybe shorten that up a little bit. And it was really helpful, actually, to get a lot of that out of him. And again, primary reason why it's hard not to say that IDW's first 100 issues isn't potentially probably my favorite, in the series at this point. I call it the quintessential like love letter to Ninja Turtles. I know like there's a lot of fan service in there too, and everything else, but I think that's sort of the point. It's like you want to jump back into Ninja Turtles especially if you're a Lapse fan. Like what a treat! Like I mean, you get to consume so much Ninja Turtles in those issues, and it gets to that depth, it gets to a tone that I think is really interesting, and he understood that, and I think him also getting a chance to work on Last Ronin and just knowing Kevin so well and everything. I think he knew what I was going for. It was like a darker tone and stuff like that. So I wasn't trying to make like a kid's narrative, right? And I think I loved it what he did. He still kept it lightish in a lot of moments, and I wanted that moments of levity without it getting like too bloody and gory and dark. Like that was where we were going. So
Sure.
I think he was a really good. I like to call it like the rails and the bowling. And then keep the ball from going too far off the side.
The is the gameplay pretty much 3 different planes? Is it the sewer, the street level, and the rooftops, or is that fair to
There's
say?
a lot of them. When you're outside, yeah, you can jump in and out of them whenever you want. It's open in that capacity, so you'll be in the sewer, you climb out, you can climb up a building, get up to the rooftop, jump off the rooftop back in the sewers. You can move between a couple small. You can move a couple of districts, so between Chinatown and the Lower East Side. But there's a lot of interior gameplay as well, so a bunch of warehouses and things like that. There was sort of an homage to the original NES game because like I don't know if you remember the original NES game. But you kind of like you're outside.
Awful.
I'm telling you that, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I was actually really inspired by the original NES game. It's like for some reason that's like a platform for it because I just love that game so much. So I was like, oh, they should be ducking in and out of these warehouses that are being used as like secretly.
Oh wait, are you talking about the bird's eye view where they be the little turtle, like that little thing, that part?
Oh well, both parts technically, because like, well, you remember then you would go into a building and then like everything was a warehouse basically.
Yes.
I was just really, I don't know, I love that. There was something about the Foot Clan using all these like secret warehouses to like run their operations. I don't know, we have a lot of that going on, little laboratories, things like that. So yeah, a lot of, and then there's a bigger port area, and things like that. So,
well, how big is the map? I don't know how to quantify that, but I'm curious if there is.
Yeah, it's not. It's. I mean, for all purposes, it's not huge. But the reason for that was because we were more focused on density, like density, and then detail in that space. Because like we could have just made like a giant kind of like fake version of New York that you can go in around, but then all the buildings would have like nothing on them. Like it just been like rows and rows of low poly glass windows and stuff. And we weren't making like a Spider-Man game, so it wasn't necessarily fun to through all that like boring thing. We wanted there to be like something new in every corner. And so yeah, it's funny. I'm struggling to figure out how to quantify exactly.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Maybe there's not a way. I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, look, I would say that, look, at the risk of making any sort of comparisons, which I'm not necessarily allowed to do, and also part of this is limitations that we have with VR.
Yeah.
But we, if you want to think of our game in like relative sizing of like the Arkham sort of universe,
okay, sure.
ours is more like Arkham City, not Arkham Asylum, but it's definitely not Gotham.
Got it. Sure.
So yeah, so it's a contained area with a lot with some outside gameplay, really dense and tight from that perspective. And yeah, that's what I think about it.
Very cool. Is there any buildings you get to go in and explore at all? I don't know if that's part of this.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I meant by
Oh, the
that's what I
warehouse
meant
thing.
by,
Sure.
Yeah, the alert. And look, it's no secret that the like end goal is Foot HQ, so like Foot Tower as
Sure.
it's sort of represented. Yeah, so
What's been what was I don't know, what was the biggest challenge of translating the Turtles into VR?
right. I think you've exclusively experienced them as you've exclusively experienced them like third person. And so there's two things I'll give you there. One, from like a story perspective, again, I think it's trying to help people understand that like you don't want to be taught that, and you don't want to be told what to do when you're in VR. So again, having to get people to understand like you are now the Ninja Turtles, and we need to move all these set pieces around you. They're probably not going to be used to just a certain aspect of like that relationship. It's like you're so used to like watching the Ninja Turtles, now you are one. And I think we had to create an environment and interactivity that supported that. And it might feel a little bit alien to people because they're not used to consuming Ninja Turtles that way. But the second part of it is you want to feel like a Ninja Turtle. What does that mean? Like especially where you're embodied, right? Like and I think trying to get that right when it comes to your skills and what you're capable of on the street, like making you feel powerful, but again, not invincible.
Sure.
So that the gameplay is fun. It's that in itself is sort of its own challenge. But I would say, the biggest challenge of all is always going to be like player expectation. Like what are people who love the Ninja Turtles is have there's so many variants of like what people love. Let's say you're a fan of the Rise Ninja Turtles, like there's probably not going to be enough like mystic stuff in there for you, right?
Sure.
But if you're like super hardcore version, a fan of like the Image Turtles, like it's not that violent and that weird. So like, just trying to hit this like middle ground. I think sometimes
It feels like all the Turtles kind of.
yeah, but we also didn't want to go so milk toast that it felt boring, and so like it wasn't anything. I think fortunately for people who try it, they kind of pick up on like whatever version of theirs is.
I felt like
that,
from what I've seen and what I've experienced, it felt like that IDW run. It felt like a bit Mirage. Like those felt like the biggest influences.
Yeah, exactly. And so we tried to lean into the ones I think that probably had the biggest influence over the whole or over the entire franchise. I think at this point, from like that depth of it outside of like the 80 show, right? So I think from that's really where we tried to put a lot of focus. But that again, massive challenge because trying to design to be that broad, it has its danger zones. You get too far outside of it, it feels like it's for no one. You get too narrow, it excludes too many people. And I like to think we hit a pretty good spot. So I think we'll see what people think.
How did you find your designs for the Turtles? Like what? Because there's a million different ways to go with how the characters look.
Yeah, coincidentally, we started with Last Ronin and worked backwards. I know it's really it's very specific, but like because part of the early thesis was it was going to be more of a Last Ronin oriented game. Actually, that's like what we were going to do initially, and then I think when we got started down that direction, and I think we just started to fall in love with the designs. What we tried to do was really try to bring out the different personalities in their body styles. We actually specifically picked out like certain sports that they might play. So like one sort of built like a swimmer, one sort of built like an MMA fighter, one sort of built like a like a bodybuilder, and you can kind of see it in in a lot of the concept art. Like like Raph's got bigger shoulders, a little stocky, like his little he's been lifted a little bit more than his brothers have. Donatello's got a bit more of a swimmer's body, whereas whereas Leonardo's got a bit more of a footballer's body, if you want to think of it that way. So we tried to pull that stuff out, and that's actually where a lot of the designs came from. And then I think between Last Ronin and IDW, that's probably where it took primary focus, honestly. And then we wanted to extrapolate out our own vision for it.
So tell me what this game would have looked like as a Last Ronin game, and how did it transform? Because I didn't know that.
Yeah, so because the initial idea was like, okay, if we were gonna just because remember this was before Lost Years or anything else came out,
Sure.
we started really thinking about, or maybe Lost Years started to come out, but you definitely didn't know anything about Ninja Turtles prior to the events of the Last Ronin. So we're like, let's imagine it as a, like, these are the turtles from before that.
Mm.
And actually, in some ways, like the only thing we had was like that last spoiler alert, that last panel, right, of like Michelangelo now having passed, and they're all on the rooftop with like Casey and Master Splinter. I don't know if you remember that particular.
Oh yeah. Ben Bishop's wonderful art. Absolutely, yeah.
But you know, you took the darkness of the whole thing, but then you took a snapshot of that, and it just felt like the old Turtles, right? But then like there was a series of things that happened between then and then the events of Last Ronin, which again at that point we didn't have any context. It's thinking like, was Splinter Hamata Yoshi or was he just a rat? We didn't know anything, right? So we took a lot of assumptions on that one. Actually, that was kind of where that's kind of actually how we set the tone for the game initially. Was like actually the events of them killing the Shredder in Last Ronin was out. It's actually the way we think about our canonical way that Shredder was killed. Like kind of gnarly, like PTSD, like Michelangelo being like, I don't want to do it. It's like actually that is the kind of actually how we canonically tie. Like for us, that's how the Shredder was killed. Like really kind of gnarly, like raid style, gonna go up a building and kill the Shredder. Yeah, so that's kind of how it started. That was some of the initial inspiration.
Oh, what? Can you tell me how like uh secondary characters like Splinter and April or anybody else play a part?
Yeah, sure. So you know, April for us was a incredibly important character. She probably has the most lines actually out of anybody in the game. You know, she does mostly hang back and try to help be the person on the inside on the phone, trying to guide the players to where they need to go, like decoding intel. We did bring her back to being like a scientist engineer. Again, last round, right? Like because moving backwards from there, I'm like, well, like what? I know they should do good for survival and probably got a lot better at it over time, like post Donatello being gone. But we wanted to kind of bring her back to a place where she was like really brilliant, trying to learn things. And so you know, she helps you find stuff. She has you when you find technology and things that need to get like hacked out in the world. She tells you to bring it back so she can take care of it or whatnot. So she's constantly in your ear helping you with you know, A, B, and C. And without spoiling too much, she does end up having sort of like a core rivalry that you end up helping her, you know, fix like throughout the story. That's really important. Casey, how much we love the guy, he's also a little bit of that and kind of just a bit of comic relief for the most part. But in a way, you know, he's an active part of the story that it helps to push a lot of things along. So, you know, it's one of these things where you might be looking for something and he'll like be the advanced team. He'll find something and say, hey, like come over here.
Oh, okay, so
Like,
you can't
and
play
get
as
on the
Casey,
corner.
but he's on the street with you.
Exactly.
Okay.
So he's around. So he'll be in like various cutscenes, and you know, him and April are together in ours. So that's all there. And Master Splinter, kind of in a similar vein of things, he's trying to help you figure things out from the astral plane and doing some other stuff to
Oh, nice.
help kind of guide the player forward and try to figure out what's going on. Yeah, so that's it for the families. And then obviously, you know, Karai's in the game. So that and she plays a cornerstone like character there. So
Is given that this won't like the date this comes out, is there any like surprise character you can announce or anything like that? I don't know if that's allowed or if there's a place for that here. If not, no big deal.
no, there is one. Like I
Okay,
can't
that's fine.
talk about it. Or I can't talk about it. It's marketing or killing. And again, some of these weird things. I know you and I talked about this before, but like it'll be random. Like I think we're gonna announce it. My worry is that it's actually gonna announce to a whimper. I think the only people are gonna know who it is. It's gonna be super hardcore. But I think I'm like, what? Like of all the people, this. I don't know. I'm hanging my head on it.
It's tattoo. You heard it here first. It's tattoo.
Even more random than that.
Okay. I don't know if pre-order stuff. Should I get all those details from Jim later? Is that
Yeah.
Cool.
They can hook you up with that.
Is there anything else you want to cover about this? Because I think that was perfect. Thank you for your time again. I really appreciate it.
No, I mean I think yeah, no man, thanks. I again always appreciate the support.
No,
And
whatever I
again,
can do. Like I said, I'm not the biggest video game guy. I'll enjoy the hell out of that experience, but I was like, oh, I'm at a huge video game magazine, so I was like, oh, I can see if they're open to it. So I was like, yeah, and they were game. So whatever I can do, and hopefully, close to the release date, we'll do it again. And any way I can help, man, I want to get this out there. So for real, let me know.
No, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
If you have any questions that come up that you didn't think about earlier, let me know. Happy
Cool.
to
Sounds great.
jump on again.
Thank you guys. Take care.
Thanks, Ryan.